This makes your blender look really good on the counter, and that's all it's good for. It's not made for using, it's made for looking good on the counter. So one day I took dehydrated pineapple rings, which are hard as, really tough, and some frozen banana, put it in the blender, added some water, turned it on, and the little connecting piece just sheared.
From a Vitamix?
No, my $19 blender. I go, no problem. Kmart's a kilometer from my house. I hop over, you know, go get it, bring it in, get another one, come back, put the pineapple, same thing in again. Yeah. Turn it on. Go back to Kmart. Figure out what was the odds of getting two bad ones. I mean, what was just an unlucky break, right? And so I put it all in again, turn it on.
Really?
I've been through 3 blenders in 15 minutes. Right? Like, I'm starting to think, like, how many are they going to let me bring back? They don't care. I can bring as many as I want back. All I want, though, is lunch. Then I see the commercial, and the guy takes a piece of pine wood, 2" by 2", whatever it is, 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, a square of wood, and he turns on the Vitamix, and he takes the wood and he goes, and turns it into sawdust. And I go, I'm getting one of those. So I used my Vitamix for years and years and years, and eventually it died. And I called up the company and said my Vitamix died, and they asked me for the number on it, and I gave them the number on it, and they go, you only bought that thing like 9 years ago. It's still under warranty. Send it back. We'll fix it and send it back, or we'll send you a new one. You go, holy cow, like Vitamix is king. And so I continued using Vitamix, and I've been through 4 or 5 Vitamixes, besides the one that I have in Costa Rica waiting for when I do events down there, besides the ones that I have in Cedro Woolley waiting for when I go do my events over in Washington, and still some at home. Oh, and the one at my mom's house, and the one at my sister's house, and the one at my niece's house. Because, I mean, like, they should all have tools when I get there. I don't want to be without my tools any more than a runner doesn't have a pair of sneakers in their car. Of course, if you're a runner, you've got a pair of sneakers in your car. You might get an opportunity to run. You got to have sneakers in your car if you're a runner, you know? Whatever. Everybody carries the tools around with them. So I put blenders everywhere I go. I got a weight set in New Jersey. I got a weight set in Washington. I got a weight set in Costa Rica. I got a weight set at my house. And I lift at my friend's house. But I have the extras just in case. You never know where you'll be. And then I was in Austria. I was in Venice for 3 months, helping a client in Venice. And the reason he was a client was because another guy, a neighbor of his, had been my client. And I really helped him. He was very happy with me. And now that I'm working for this other guy, he goes, will you make food for me too? I go, sure, I'll make food for you too. As long as I'm making food for one, I'll make food for this. I start making food for him. And I'm using the new guy's blender. Because I sent him a list of things he needed to have. And he got everything on the list except the blender. He goes, I already have a blender. Why do I need to buy another blender? I go, because your blender's like a $9 blender. It's a little, I mean, it's just everything wrong in a blender. It makes so much racket and does next to nothing. So the original client comes to the house one day with a Blendtec, with the cover. If you use the Blendtec with the cover, you will never, ever, ever use your Vitamix again. Way. Like I got rid of my Vitamix. On the spot, instantly. No looking back. No looking back. It was like the Rome DeVille. I'm not going back to my box. Yeah. Vitamix is king. I got nothing bad to say against Vitamix. But man, once you've used that Blendtec, you like your Blendtec.
It's better than everything else
I
I've
want
tried.
to try Vitamix. Yeah.
I'll give you my own Vitamix.
But I mean, it's not like with the cover, so
Yeah, you got.
I think it's not as powerful.
You got to put the cover. The cover isn't like for power, right? The cover
It's
is
for the sound, right?
So when you're talking to somebody while you're using your Vitamix, how's that conversation go? Like, I can just keep talking to you like this while I'm blending. I just close the cover and turn it on, and you don't even really know that I have. Yes, you can hear it, but it's about this loud. It's about all the noise that it makes. It just kind of hums. Unless it's on really high speed, in which case, but it's not loud. It's like I wouldn't put protection on my ears like you would for a Vitamix. You could, you know. There's none of that. You could put ice in there, and frozen bananas, dehydrated stuff, some nuts, whatever you're putting in there, and it's just like not a lot of. It's just not making noise. Wow, it's so good that now Vitamix is making a sound cover for theirs. They're starting to offer. They had to, because it's such an improvement that they had to keep up with it. And I think it all stemmed from some maybe Maxwell Smart or something. It was some really weird old TV show comedy, spy comedy, where they used to get into the dome of silence or something. But they're using that same kind. Oh my God! You just put that dome over the top. All bets off. Yeah. So, but having one is important, I think, for success. But it's not the most common tool that I use in my kitchen. I go days at a time without using either one. I don't use a blender often. When I need a blender, I want a blender. My wife uses a blender every single morning. Bananas go in that blender every single morning. She likes carrot powder, bananas, carrot powder, probably a few dates or a few figs. Every single morning. Pour it over chopped apple. Every single morning. Like, you getting the idea? Like, every single morning. That's her breakfast. I don't really care. I just want to eat. I don't really care. As long as there's fruit, I don't really care. But she's having that breakfast. Okay, fine. Fine. She's obviously not yet tired of the same old thing because she's having. Let's see. She's been having that breakfast for probably 20 years.
Every time.
Every time.
Oh.
Yeah. If she came here, she'd bring a blender with her. And she could... So that makes that opens. It opens up one other door, because the type of blenders we're talking about have a name. They create a tornado, and air gets sucked in to what you're making through a process called cavitation. So these are known as cavitation blenders. Okay, because they're pulling, everything spins and pulls down through the middle, and it just keeps pulling stuff down, throws it out the sides and down through the middle, and it's oxygenating like crazy. Which means if you make a smoothie out of your Vitamix or your Blendtec, either way, if you put it in a glass, it's going to change color pretty quickly. It's going to oxidize pretty quickly. Which, what do we care? We're going to drink it faster than that. I'm just saying that to the chef, which there may be some of that going on here too, you might not want your banana smoothie to change color. You might want that light color or that dark color or that whatever color you wanted, or consistency that comes from an immersion blender. The nice thing about immersion blenders, A, they're not oxidizing because you're not pulling any air in at all. The blender's underneath, the blade spins, stuff gets pulled in and goes up and out, and there's no oxygen being added to the mixture. If you take a glass of smoothie from an immersion blender, which is sometimes called a stick blender or a hand blender, can be 19 pounds up to any amount you want to pay, and make a smoothie out of that, and it'll stay the color that it is. You might get a film across the top, but the rest of it will stay the color that it is for hours, whereas the smoothie made in a Vitamix right next to it will turn brown in 15 minutes. We've done this experiment side by side again and again and again. So it depends on how you want, what your presentation requirements are. Sometimes we care. Depends what you're going to use it for. Okay, are you making a pudding? Are you making a drink? Are you making? It depends what you can do with it. The immersion blender also can be bigger. You can take one that looks basically like a weed whacker or a small motorcycle on a stick, and this thing costs maybe 500, 400 euros, and it'll do 40 liters at a time. So for a group like this, even this small group, well, let's say it's 200 people come to this event. You don't really want to start making smoothies in Vitamix for 200 people. Like, oh my God. So then you just take this immersion blender, you get some office help. They got a big pot in front of them. They throw in 400 bananas, pour in the right amount of water, and just go, done. It's really quick, and it'll do 400 bananas at a sitting. That'll take you through a group. Pretty, you can make it quick. Big soups, big smoothie. Make a big smoothie. You use whole pitchers to just scoop out 50 pitchers worth of smoothies. Great fun. But you have to be careful you pay attention to what you put in, because if the mango pits went in the mixture, that thing's going to tear it up. You're going to have mango pits shredded throughout your whole smoothie. And I've seen that done. It's not the best. It's not the best arrangement. You've got to be a little careful what goes in there, but it's easy to use, and it's quick, it's clean, and see ya.
What about the argument about the smoothie blending it unnaturally for the body to not release the saliva for the chewing process that goes into chewing fruit? Martin's the one that said it to me. He's got an amazing blender.
He learned that from Lauren.
Yeah,
He learned that from Lauren.
Lauren,
Lauren makes up a lot of stuff.
50 bananas that you put into the blender. Like, how long would it take for you to eat it, and you just chug it down and it's over one?
It's true. How long would it take you to drink a glass of carrot juice compared to eating a pound of carrots?
Exactly.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take to drink a glass of carrot juice? Well, it depends. You could chug it in 5 seconds, or you could take your time and chew every mouthful, and sit it down in between and have a nice conversation, and then have another sip. How quickly you consume it, I've seen people consume 15 bananas, like just bananas. I've seen people consume 15 bananas in well under 5 minutes.
So this isn't really science-based.
No, it's just an idea. It's just a concept. Do you chew your bananas or do you not chew your bananas?
I guess I'm chewing a little bit.
Yeah. Could you chew more?
Sure.
Could you chew your smoothie a little bit?
Yeah, I always do.
Always do. So this is There's a guy who says blending destroys 87% of the nutrients.
What?
He had a scientist come and tell him this, so he's not taking credit for making it up. His scientist told him, who did the research, 87. And I said to him, we can't name names and stuff like this, but I go, 87% of the nutrients. This doesn't make sense. Isn't protein a nutrient? You tell me 87. Fat's a nutrient? I can lose 87% of the calories out of food just by blending it? Would this be a miracle? Would this be a miracle, like, for overweight people? All they have to do is blend their food. 87% of the calories are gone. So it's obvious not. 87% of the water, that's a nutrient. Fiber, that's a nutrient. We can't be losing 87%. You'd be losing all the volume. It would be down to like so nothing. 87% of the nutrients are lost. All that's in there is nutrients.
I think they think it goes into the air.
I don't know where they're thinking it's going, but I'm sure that if you blend long enough, you could lose 87%
In a Vitamix, it'll get hot.
of the antioxidants, maybe.
When
It
you're
could
heating
be
it up.
if you cook it enough, right?
Yeah.
But he was talking about a 2-minute blend.
Oh, it's crazy.
When was the last time you blended for 2 minutes?
Never. Always like under 40 seconds.
Does your blend tech have a timer?
If I just keep it on, it stops after 45 seconds, I think.
Yeah, mine stops after 90.
When
But
I do an ice cream and it doesn't blend.
yeah, it stops after 90. But I mean, I blend for 10 seconds is a long time. Usually it's just turn it on, turn it off.
I've made soups in my Vitamix.
I've made them, but it's not what I'm usually doing. Yes, I've brought things to boil in the Vitamix. But it's not, I mean, normally if I'm using a blender, it's for a few seconds. I don't think I'm losing 87%. I said, Brian, are you serious? You're going to actually teach from the stage that 87% of the nutrients are lost? It can't, we understand, do we not understand this can't be possible? And he goes, yeah, but that's what the scientist told me, so that's what.
One scientist.
Meanwhile, none of the nutrients are lost, according to Brian, when you juice. So he says we should juice, but not blend.
Cold pressed juice.
I don't care how you juice. Fiber is a nutrient. You're taking out all the fiber. And then you get into the whole thing of how fast you consume juice compared to how fast you consume a liquid compared to how fast you consume the actual fruit. It turns out my mother always told me my whole life to eat more slowly. I eat like my dog. I wolf my food down, man. I really do. I wolf it down. I don't take any time eating food. I love food, but I don't take a lot of time eating my meals. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, okay? But I always said to my mom, speed up.
With the blender, it's really helpful for me to have this distinction with how long it takes to go off automatically. Is that if it's just that, you know, when you, so I've got a Vitamix.
It won't go off automatically.
It will if it's a
No.
Vitamix.
No.
No, it'll stay on until it catches fire.
Right.
Right.
But which type of blender is it that it goes off?
Blend Tech.
Blend Tech.
Blend Tech. It's like for a good Blend Tech, 1,500 pounds. 1,500 pounds.
We just found a cheap one for 800. $300
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the cover.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have the cover.
No,
Did it?
Did it come with a cover for
I
800
wanted
pounds?
to see how
It was a
looks like, so
special.
we checked it.
It was a special run.
So the reason I ended up with my Blend Tech was because,
Professional 800.
yeah, there you go. That's a good start.
But it's reduced also.
So the reason I ended up with the Blend Tech was because the first client came to the door of the second client and he said, "Here's your blender." And the client said, "Wow, that's fantastic. You know, great. This is a huge." And I'm like getting all excited. "Yay, we got a blender!" And he goes, "The only thing is, this is for Doug, not for you." And when Doug goes home, he takes the blender with him.
Whoa.
It's a gift.
Whoa.
I go, "Wow, this is the nicest gift I've ever gotten from anybody ever." And I brought it home and my wife looked at it really like askance. And she wouldn't use it for weeks.
Why?
Because she likes her Vitamix. She's attached to her Vitamix. Like
It's
she
like a
loves
trader.
Vitamix, and she just wouldn't use it. It's the devil. It's got
Gotta cover.
it's digital. It's digital. It's not just turn it on and off. It's more like a computer. I'm just going like, and I don't remember what happened, but one day she had to use it, and she was, oh, this is really nice. This is really nice. And we just got rid of it, and it's never came. Well, I had to have two blenders on my kitchen counter. I didn't need two blenders, but what I did need was I needed a few more tools. And I found, for me, I make dinner in our house. So I'm making dinner for 3 raw fooders every day. My daughter's pretty athletic. She eats almost as much as I do at this point. So I'm making some serious food for 3 people. And it takes me time. That's a separate conversation. How much time should you allow? That's a different conversation entirely that you probably learned. It takes a bit of time. Helping in the kitchen, you realize there's things you just can't speed up. You need 80 tomatoes for 80 people, and you need 800 tomatoes for 800 people, and there's no shortcut on chopping tomatoes. You got to do them one at a time. It's not like just open a bigger can. What do we got? What's so fun?
New arrivals.
Yay!
New people that you also know
Close the
from the
curtains.
Dutch Food Fest.
All right. So the whole time measurement thing isn't part of today. Today we just want to look at tools. Can we name any tools that you name one that you absolutely have to have in your kitchen? What's your first tool that you use almost the most?
This zucchini noodle, this
Spiralizer.
spiralizer, like it's super quick.
A Julienne Peeler? Is it a peeler? Like you use it by hand?
It is like this,
They
peeler.
pull and it
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
like zoodles basically.
Yeah.
So that's called a Julienne Peeler.
Julian Peeler.
Because it's just like a peeler. You
Yeah,
would peel a
super
cucumber, but it makes noodles as you do it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is Julienne. Julienne is what you're doing to the food. When you cut those strips, this is Julienne. And because it's happening with a peeler as opposed to a zoodler or there's so many varieties of noodle makers out there. There are even automatic ones. Machine. So if you're making noodles for 400 people, you're not doing it that way. You're doing it by the machine. So it's faster and much more precise. And it comes with a wide variety of blades. And the tool runs around $1,800. I don't need to have one in my house. But if I was making food for 500 people, I'd want one. And a big kitchen staff. Okay, so you like those noodles. Noodles are a delivery method that are very satisfying. For a lot of people, I really like noodles. It's just a great, I don't want anything on my noodles. I just want cucumber noodles. I don't want zucchini noodles.
Why?
Because I like cucumber noodles. Why do you want apple instead of pear? I mean, why?
Why not?
I always took chocolate. My sister always took vanilla. We never asked why.
Do you eat zucchini another way?
Yeah, I'll eat zucchini noodles, but I prefer But with zucchini noodles, I'd really rather they had something on them. Something. There's endless sauces that we could create, right? But for cucumber noodles, I don't even want sauce. I know how to make sauce. I'm really good with sauce. It's usually my job. I went to his house for dinner, and he says, "Can you make the sauce?" It just comes out that way. I'd rather make the sauce because he spent hours making dinner. I spent minutes making sauce. I'm happy to make sauce that everybody liked. Do you go in the kitchen or just eat in the kitchen?
I mean, I go, of course.
Do you do anything in the kitchen?
I mean, I chop up the watermelon.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So your favorite tool is a knife, or is it the cutting board?
Yeah, he always
Actually, the cutting
brings
board-
the cutting board with him.
Go ahead.
What I don't like about the cutting board is if it starts to smell, or if
If it's
if I can't clean it easily.
wood,
Mm-hmm.
wood
Yes.
cutting board.
So I'm always going to use plastic
Mm-hmm.
flexible cutting mats.
Mhm.
And when they start to get old, you chuck them. And they cost next to nothing. And they're flexible, so you can control stuff all the time. You just have to be careful because when they bend, your hands are here, but the lip is there, and it sometimes catch on stuff, and then it goes everywhere. You do have to learn how to use it a little bit. Flexible cutting mats, I mean, I've got them in my suitcase. I don't leave home without flexible cutting mats. Okay? I mean, there's some things you just gotta have, right? And they come in sets, and they come in colors, so you can even use different things if you want. I'm really a fan of those. I've got cutting boards that my dad made when I was a kid, out of an old bowling alley. Right, when the lanes came up, he turned those lanes on their sides and turned them into a cutting board.
That's cool.
I mean, that's some seriously hard wood. That thing's gonna last centuries because I'm using the flexible cutting mats. So it just lasts. It's not getting used. But if you have a big flat mat and it doesn't have runners all the way around, you're gonna start, I mean, you're cutting watermelon, there's juice going everywhere. Might be worth customizing your board with a router. You use wood so that it catches the.
Yes.
And the flexible ones are from plastic,
There's
unfortunately.
well, yes and no. Like my mom likes or liked when she was alive. She liked glass cutting boards, but they dull your knife and they sound horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm very sensitive to sound. So I like the plastic because of the sound.
I mean the traces of plastic.
I understand where you're going, but I don't know how many traces of plastic I'm really adding to my food when I cut on the mat. I'm not cutting into the mat. I'm just cutting on a mat so that I don't accidentally cut my countertops.
Like peels off if there's enough cuts on the mat.
No, you throw it away. It's a $2 mat.
Okay. So
When
you
it
do
starts-
it every month or so.
Every couple of months, yeah. Actually, I've got like a half a dozen in the drawer, so I just order another half a dozen.
Yeah.
You know, and they get you through a year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when they're really old and they're starting to come apart, that's not. I don't want to be eating the plastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not eco-friendly, I guess. But I guess that's a different class for a different debate.
Yeah.
So what other tools? Got the Julienner
Okay, so we got a knife.
and a knife.
Does
and
anybody
cutting board.
Does anybody have a knife they like?
Yeah.
What's your knife? Do you know?
What the name?
I'm willing to guess it has a name.
I don't know the name now.
Okay, is it big or is it little?
It's like long and skinny.
It's long and skinny. Is it almost what you would call a carving knife? No.
I don't know what company.
Is it a paring knife? No. Is it a fillet knife? It's long and skinny. It sounds almost like a fillet knife. Now you're not using it to fillet fish, but you're filleting fruit. Okay. Anybody else have a knife they're particularly fond of? You said yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind it is, or can you describe it, or the shape, or
I can,
what's it made out
I
of?
can draw on them.
You can tell me.
You'd rather draw it.
Okay. How long is it?
It's like 14 centimeters, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
And the
Is it ever too short?
Huh?
Is it ever too short for what you want to cut? Like you want to cut a whole lot of lettuce?
Of course, I use more knives, but the
Yeah.
favorite one is this one.
That's the favorite one. That's the go-to.
Yeah.
Is it a chef's knife?
Yeah, kind of.
Looks like a chef's knife.
Yeah, it's a
the
chef.
blade is thicker.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, taller.
There's a whole bunch of kind of knives, but you're gonna want to have a knife that's your go-to.
Mine's got a curve.
You got right.
It's like a chef's knife, but it's got a curved Chicago cutlery.
Yeah, so it's
It's like $20, and I'm able to like chew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has a nice like bounce to it.
nice roll.
Roll.
Lots of. All I'm suggesting is you probably want to have a knife or two that is yours, probably want to have a knife or two that you're happy to travel with.
Subway knives. Do you know the Subway knife? The fixed well?
No,
You probably don't go to Subway.
not
Yeah.
often.
I worked at Subway when I was
Yeah.
in high school, and if you go to a Subway sandwich shop, they have these like little sandwich knives, and they cut the bread really
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
And for like 20 years, whenever I traveled, I always had like, you can go to Subway, not so much now, but back in the old days,
You could buy it.
no, you could just ask them like, hey, do you have any old knives in the back?
Oh,
Because they use them for like a week or 2 weeks, and then
right.
but they don't. But they're not sharp enough, I guess, for Subway to cut through the bread really fast. But these things are so sharp, and they're serrated, and they're from Germany.
Right.
And you was like, hey, do you have any old knives back there? And they're like, yeah. But like, I used to work at Subway. I need a couple more knives. They're like, okay, here you go. Not anymore. They don't really like. They're like, no, we're not going to give you a knife in our restaurant.
Until after you buy lunch.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe after lunch.
But yeah, that's the Subway sandwich knife.
Vitamix sells a spatula for cleaning the Vitamix. It's a plastic stick. It's plastic. It is. It's a hard plastic, but it's plastic, and it's flat, and it's just got a small blade, and it's my all-time favorite spatula. There are a few others that used to be my all-time favorite spatula, and they got replaced by this stupid stick that shouldn't really be, but it just does the job so well that it became it's what I pull out of the drawer, even though I've got these others that were my favorite spatula. And for some reason I still have in the drawer probably 8 or 10 spatulas that I will never touch for the rest of my life. I don't like them. They're either too soft or too wide or they don't serve my purpose. I really should just throw them out because I am never going to use them. But I would say like, if I had to take all the tools in my kitchen that I use the most, it would be a spatula, a knife, a cutting board, and a food processor. Yeah.
I've got a question about so food processor over blender. So I've got a blender. I'm trying to decide about getting a food processor. What do they do? I think they can sterilize and they can.
I use my food processor. I use the food processor primarily for what's called the Sabatier blade. The Sabatier blade is shaped like the letter S. So some people just call it the S blade. And that blade will take celery and turn it into ground celery. It'll take carrots and turn it into ground. Any size I want from whole carrot down. The longer you let the S blade run, the more it'll bring it down to nothing. It'll take avocados and turn it into avocado soup, avocado pudding. I use the S blade primarily, but I also use the Julienne Slicer that comes with my food processor. So I'm not making noodles this way.
Okay.
I'm just taking cucumbers and going vroom, vroom, vroom. I'll go through 10 cucumbers in well under a minute. The longest thing that takes time is actually peeling. But I don't peel them that well in the first place because I want a little peel on there anyway. But when you go through I prefer that cut, but it's not the same cut. There are Julian Peelers that will cut you triangle noodles. There's Julian Peelers that will cut you small circles, big circles, squares. There's a lot of different kinds of Julian Peelers. And I've given the same noodles, like the same food, cut into different kinds of noodles and see which. It's just astonishing that some people prefer the triangle and some people prefer the square and some people prefer the round and some people prefer the big and some want the angel hair and then again for you, like if you're thinking angel hair pasta, you want that one. And if you're thinking big noodles, you want that one, because there's fat noodles too. And then there's flat noodles. And there's tools to do all of different Julian Peelers to do all of those. Or attachments. I use my food processor almost every single day.
And so will the food processor like chop, you know we had today the cucumber, tomato, peppers, little chunks. Will it do that kind of chunky thing as well?
Yeah.
And
It would take about 2 seconds.
And you put all of them in at the same time, like
Yeah.
Right.
It'd take about 2 seconds.
And can you get one that'll turn itself off? That's a really important thing for me. Like the Blend Tech one, I'm guessing.
Why would you want
Food
to be turned off
processor
by
that
yourself?
turns
'Cause
itself
you can't
off?
see what the condition is.
No,
of the-
it's just because with my epilepsy,
Uh-huh.
because
If something were to
preparing food is a
happen.
big trigger for me.
What
And
is
so
it?
if
Blending food is a trigger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it means that I have the seizure, then I'm more likely to have a seizure if I know that it won't turn off. Because I'll get lots of fear thoughts that I'll tell myself and
Oh,
I'll
jeez.
stop believing them. Whereas if I know it's going to cut off, then those fear thoughts that come in, I'll go, oh no, it doesn't affect me there. So I can get away from that.
Do you know what are called ear protectors?
Is it because of the noise
That
for you?
I mean, that doesn't help as well.
But you're
But
afraid
it's
that
the
something,
thoughts.
the thought
If
that something's going to happen
If I have a seizure,
if you have a seizure
then
while you're
I'm
blending.
conscious and then it keeps
Uh-huh.
spinning. So that's why I like using the hob when I have steamed potatoes, not very often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more likely to have a seizure steaming vegetables than I am doing a bit of raw chopping even.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least with the
I would
knife,
say no, it doesn't. But you're literally talking 2 or 3 seconds of food processing. Like it's almost as soon as you turned it on, you're turning it on.
yeah.
And if you put on ear protectors, you cut out most of the input from the machine itself.
Yeah, like I say, it would be good if there was.
And there are ones with this pulse button that it keeps going on only when you push.
Yeah,
on it.
so that is helpful that it would
Pulse
stop.
button.
Of course, so
Because then you're just like, you just touch the button.
and
if you were
have
something
to
were to
hold
happen-
it. You have to hold it to.
Actually,
like the Vitamix.
Actually, the Vitamix has that too.
Does your Vitamix
It
have a
has
pulse?
a pulse, yeah, it has a
Yeah.
pulse, so that stops, so that's great. And it's just the on bit, which can be very gentle. And I mean, if that's going for, say, 20, 30 minutes, and if it's still okay to do that, then without it bursting into flames, then that's good to know. Because I will have it on a low.
Yeah, because probably the flames
They-
part is bad, right?
I think they actually have some kind of thing for the.
The Vitamix has a fuse, so
It
it'll
doesn't
turn
get too
itself
hot.
off.
Yeah, it turns off actually if it gets too hot.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Ah,
Vitamix,
yeah.
See,
the Vitamix turns itself off.
That's
Yeah.
so helpful, because now I can just say
So
to
many.
those fear thoughts,
Yeah.
you don't need to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it helps me to calm.
Vitamix has turned itself off far too many times in my life.
Great.
Let's see, there must be another tool.
I use a Japanese mandolin, which is kind of like a Julian.
Yeah,
the
it's a
flat
Julienne
thing.
tool. I love my mandolin.
You can change out the blade and then change the thickness or
Yep.
thinness. I love
Adjust
that.
it all. It's got all kinds of.
I use it all the time.
Yeah, you use a lot for precision cuts.
Yep.
For precision cuts, the mandolin is a great tool. How many times have you cut yourself on the mandolin?
3 times. Because I don't use the safety thing,
And you don't use the glove.
and I don't use the glove now.
So they make a chainmail glove to go with the mandolin.
I should probably get that, but I'm like,
I hate
after the
it.
3rd time, you're like, I'm never cutting my, like,
Yeah, but the first time was probably a really good cut.
it was. But it was also all distracted cuts.
And
I was talking.
It's your energy.
so my chef, I had one of my best chefs that I ever had. His name's Simon, and Simon was at Health and Fitness Week, and he stayed on for Culinary Skills Week. And now I'm saying, okay, you're gonna make food, but the students are gonna make most of the food. You got to guide them, and I want you to do a demo on the mandolin. He goes, okay, and so he comes in to do a demo on the mandolin. And one of the things that I want him to mention is that pretty much every single person that's ever used a mandolin cut themselves the first time they used a mandolin. or the first time they used it without the tool to hold the food, right? Everybody cuts themselves. And Simon's doing a lovely little demo, and he says, but you have to be really careful when you use the mandolin, because you could cut yourself, and he cut his thumb. So big, like the demo had to stop. There's blood just going everywhere. It's going, man, like it just stopped being a vegan meal by the time you cut a big chunk of your thumb and put it in the... What's here? We got flex mats. Do you use a scale? Do you want to recreate?
Yeah.
Okay, so I use a scale
Yeah.
only rarely, admittedly only rarely, but I do use a scale because people keep asking me, how did I do this and what were the proportions, and I go, I don't know, I don't try to ever, I can't make the same thing once, let alone twice. So, but a kitchen scale is kind of a nice thing to have if you want to make something. Again, a colander is a good thing to have, one that you trust. I like the screeny ones. If it's grape season and you blend grapes, you now got grape juice without having to use a juicer. But it's foamy as all heck, so you got to put it once through the colander and just kind of shake it around a little, let it all come through. And that's about my only use for a colander. But my wife definitely washes vegetables and puts them in a colander, lets it drain for a while. I love my shovel. I'm not talking about serving tools, because serving tools are a whole nother lecture. But I use a little, I call it a shovel. It's really an ice cream scoop, but it's not one of the big round ones. It's more like a shovel. And I'm using that for mixing things all the time. That just is great for mixing things. I would never go into a kitchen without lots of kitchen cloth. It's really nice. If you watch any show where they're making food in front of you, somebody who's any good making food, especially if you go look at the chefs making sushi, they all wear a kitchen towel right here. They wear a kitchen towel because you're using your hands to make something. You wipe, you make the next thing. You wipe, you make the next. Always, you want to have lots of kitchen towels. To me, a big deal. A zester, every kitchen should have a zester. We have one, but I've never ever used a zester. But Gabrielle uses her zester all the time. And Rosie has several recipes that she makes in the course of a year where she has to have lemon zest. But you can zest all kinds of vegetables, not just lemon peel. There's lots of vegetables you can zest, and it's great if you use the zester and then put that stuff, whatever you just zested, put that on top of a soup or put that on top of a veg. It's like confetti. You just made confetti. It's just like, wow. It's so.
Give examples of other stuff that you would zest.
Pepper, carrot, doesn't matter whatever color zest you want. Because you're making confetti. You're literally making confetti. So in the case of a lemon zest, it's a flavor.
Right, but otherwise it's like a decoration.
But otherwise it's pretty much for decoration. But it's a nice tool. Nice knife. Peeler, Julian Peeler.
Juicer?
Do you guys use a dehydrator, anybody? I like my dehydrator, but I don't. Man, I used to be friends with Shauna Verbecki. She owned Excalibur. And I met her one day. We were both on a panel discussion, and we made friends. And she became a big supporter of my work. And I called her up all the time, asking her questions about her dehydrators. And I go, man, when I use my dehydrator, some trays dry really fast, and some trays dry really slow, and the front and the back, and it's all different, and what's going on. And we go through it, and she goes, is it just my dehydrator where the tray 4 dries the fastest and tray 6 and tray 1 and 9, like nothing, it's really slow? And she goes, I don't know, everything dries in my dehydrator. I go, I don't dry anything in my dehydrator. We realized she's dehydrating things until you can't dehydrate them anymore, like for storage. I'm taking a tomato and cutting it in half and putting it on the dehydrator for 3 hours, and I've driven off a little bit of water, and I now have more tomato flavor, and I'm serving it right then and there. I'm taking mango cheeks. That's a different conversation, but I'm taking mango cheeks and putting them on the dehydrator on a sheet so it won't drip through or stick, and let it dry for 4 or 5 hours, and it turns into a crust on the outside and a soft pillow of mango on the inside. Doesn't get any better than mango cheeks in the dehydrator. Maybe slugs. It's the same thing with slugs. I don't want the bananas to be so dry. I'm not trying to turn it into Tootsie Roll of a banana that you gotta chew it and bite it off, and it's not even flavorful because it's so dry. But a couple hours and it's clean to hold because it's got a skin on the outside now, and it's absolutely banana bread on the inside. It's just soft and creamy and sweet, and you drove off some of the water, so it's got more banana flavor even than it had, and the sugars are more accessible, so it's sweeter than it was, and it's only 2 bites per banana. Goes down fast.
Are you doing the whole banana?
Just whole banana, just put it in there.
Uncut? Just...
Uncut.
Okay.
Definitely, uncut, unplugged, uncut, the whole deal. So for the same reason, I really like to have a measuring spoon so that I know how much of whatever concoction I put in. Because otherwise I really can't tell people how much of this, how much of that. A lot of my flavors, I like to make my own flavors. And in order to make my own flavors, I kind of have to measure how much of this and that I use. How much turmeric or how much whatever cumin or sesame seeds or whatever you're measuring. It's kind of nice to know. So when you put it all together and you go, oh, here's the flavor. If I want to make that flavor again, I got to be able to have a measurement.
Do you use a juicer much?
No, I don't use a juicer at all. I own a juicer. I won't say never, but I won't say never. I walked into the grocery store one time, and they had like 20 bags of carrots that had gotten old, and so they had to sell them off really cheap. And I just go, oh, 20 bags of carrots, okay, for like £1. And I go, okay, 20 bags of carrots for £1. I'll take them home. It was probably £2 for the 20 bags. They just had them marked down, man. I just took them home, ran them through the juicer. Royal pain in the butt. I hate doing it. My juicer's a centrifugal juicer, so I have to clean it over and over. It's really a pain. Having a nice dual grind, that kind is, the slow dual wheels. They're nice. They're nicer because they're self-cleaning all the time. But this thing, I have to clean it out. But still, at the end of the day, I had carrot juice, which my wife very much likes, a glass of carrot juice, and pretty much we never have it because I'm not making juice. What am I going to do? No, I want the whole food, and there's not much you can do with the pulp. There are recipes you can make, but not that many, to use that kind of valuable pulp, and it doesn't come out tasting that good anyway. Without the sweetness of the carrot, it just tastes bitter. So, no, I don't use a lot, but on the other hand, I do use a citrus juicer quite a bit. Because with the citrus juicer, I'm just changing form. I want to make a drink. There's almost no pulp, but if there is pulp, it's going into tonight's salad. So I'm still using the whole food. I could use a juicer to make tomato juice, and then take the pulp and put it into tonight's salad. Or put it into soup, or put it into burger, or put it into, tomato sauce, or put it into something else Meanwhile, so I like using the whole food, even if for delivery purposes, that's what tools are for. I change the texture of something. I can serve you a clarified tomato juice at one part of a meal and serve you nice thick tomato sauce. And all it was the pulp from the soup, from the juice. It might thing keeps me.
Which kind of dishes you prepare with dehydrator?
Ooh,
Which kind of dishes you prepare with dehydrator?
dishes
Yes.
to serve on?
Yeah. For which dishes you use dehydrator? Like burgers, slugs?
Not dishes, the plate, but like the,
What
the
do I
meal.
use the dehydrator for?
Yes.
What meals do you make?
Commonly, half tomatoes.
Mhm.
I just let them, we'll put in 30, 40 tomatoes, and at 6 o'clock at night before dinner, just raid the dehydrator, and it's kind of nice. It's sort of a first course. It's very common. First course is just half tomatoes, and they've been in there for a few hours. Not very long, a few hours. Definitely burgers. I like the delivery of burgers. I like eating a burger. I like
Lettuce burger?
sometimes.
Or just without,
Usually without. What I do is I just put it on top of my salad and start cutting it and have a bite of. It's just like a bite of burger with the salad. Do it that way, but I'll also do it where I'll just take iceberg and just cut it and make top and bottom.
And what's in your burger?
Avocado, celery, and maybe some carrot.
Okay.
And then whatever flavor I want that night. It's usually, for me, fennel seeds. Usually fennel seeds is my favorite. But I never ate curry in my entire life until I was probably 55 years old. Never tasted curry.
Why?
I was never exposed to curry.
This is a natural thing. Curry is a mixture of different spices.
I never had it. I wasn't
Okay.
avoiding it. I just never seen it. My mom didn't make curry, so I never had curry. And then I just didn't know from curry. And then I tried it. This is great.
Question.
So I a lot of times now I make my own curry powder
Mm-hmm.
and throw that in burger. So it's probably like my favorite.
And you do this in the food processor?
Yeah, a couple of seconds in the food. Well, so you put avocado in the food processor, you take it out. You put carrots in the food processor, you take that out. Put celery in the food processor, you take that out, and the food processor is now completely clean. You can't even tell there was ever avocado in there because the carrot got the rough part and the celery magically cleaned the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Celery does not stick to almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Makes things very slippery when you add.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mix it all
but with the
together.
avocado, you mix that together, boom.
And then dehydrate it? Or you don't have to do it?
Then you use your mold.
Uh-huh.
Gotta have a mold. But my sister's mold, her favorite mold is this. That's her favorite mold. She'll make patties like this. She'll make balls like this. And that's her favorite mold, and it's pretty quick. And you go. Chunk, chunk. Mine would be to take the shovel and top, and it's a shape.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like pierogies, but they're veggie patties. But I really like making balls of various sizes. The ball is a really nice burger delivery.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever heard of meatballs, people make meatballs.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought? So I'm making veggie balls.
And you put the spices in with the end mixture?
In the avocado. In with the avocado.
Uh-huh.
So it's in the sauce.
Okay.
So it'll spread its flavor around a little bit with it's already in the sauce.
And then you dehydrate it. Once it's mold, put it in the mold, and then in the dehydrator.
Yeah. And I like using a burger mold itself. There's dozens of different kinds of burger molds. We'll show you the one that Gabriella uses, and I'll show you the one that I use.
Okay.
They're not dissimilar, but they are different. And what? with a burger. Yeah, once it turned into burger, put it on the dehydrator. You get to decide whether you're going to flip it or not. I like to flip it if it's the shape of a burger. I don't need to flip it if it's the shape of a ball.
And crackers. Cheese.
Years ago, I used to make crackers all the time, but I haven't made crackers in a good long while. I was just thinking about making them. I mean, I don't know, that's a different class.
Kale chips.
Certain times a year I'm
They're
making
fun.
certain times a year I'm making more kale chips than you can ever imagine humanly possible. Like my daughter eats kale like there's no tomorrow. And we were this spring she was eating kale like I can't make enough kale chips. I'm making 1 kilo of kale chips every day. And she's eating 1 kilo of kale. I'm really like, this is a lot. And then one day she stopped. And she hasn't had kale chips since the end of May. Hasn't asked for them.
It's a phase.
Yeah, I'm sure once the weather cools off again, but right now the fruit's too good. Blender, food processor, spatulas, juicer. Anybody have an ice cream machine? How do you make ice cream? In your Blendtec.
Just an ice cream, yeah.
Processor.
My wife, she makes it. She takes frozen bananas, cut it before, deep freezer. And when I say, what's about ice cream? We take this with the rest of bananas, which are not frozen, in a mixture. I say you, it is so sweet. You never will believe this. And you eat it, you eat it, you eat.
She did it in a food processor? Did she mix it somehow?
Mixer. Yeah, in a mixer. So a special Thermomix, if you know what it is.
Yeah, I know Thermomix, sure. Thermomix is a lovely tool.
Sometimes she's mixing it with any pears, so strawberry or whatever, or blackberries.
Yep.
And this is
Okay,
so
so
fine to eat.
back in the day, you used to take a wooden bucket or a metal bucket and stick it inside of another bucket that was bigger by maybe 1 inch. And in between that inch, you put salt and ice.
Salt and ice.
Salt and ice. And between salt and ice, it gets so cold. It's colder than just ice.
Yeah, because I say salt water.
Yeah.
It
can get colder than fresh water, of course.
-3 degrees,
Of
4
course.
degrees, not frozen.
Yes. So it's so cold. And then you put in your cream and you put in your whatever you do and you make ice cream by stirring for 30 minutes. But you do end up with ice cream. And you just stir for 30 minutes. So recently, and I don't know how recently, but relatively recently, the various food manufacturers, including Cuisinart,
We had a Cuisinart one. It's
and
amazing.
some of the other competitors, now make an ice cream machine where you just either freeze the bucket or they have electric freeze. And the bucket is a what do they call it? A thermos bottle.
Yeah.
But instead of a vacuum, it's got salt water in there so that it can make super, super cold freeze. And then
With a spatula attachment.
with a spatula inside the turning bowl, and you add your mix, and then you add your fruit or whatever else you're adding, and it makes its own ice cream. So at my house, my family's been very happy with the ice cream, and they were going, but isn't this a terrible combination, and it's all fat? And I'm going, no, not the way I'm making it, it's not. I do add a tiny bit of nut, but really a tiny bit, and I've done the math, and it's very low fat. And,
Cashew nuts sometimes she puts in.
yeah, cashew nuts work really well. Other nuts work also. So that gets us through a whole bunch of kitchen tools all the way to ice cream.